Welcome to MyHeart Talks. Here, we don't just tell stories, we share hearts. Every word you hear is someone's truth, someone's pain, someone's strength. If you've ever trusted the wrong people, if love ever turned into silence, then stay with me till the end, because today's story might feel like your own. I don't know when life became this quiet. Maybe it was the day he stopped calling me Ma the way he used to. Maybe it was the day his wife started deciding what I should say and what I shouldn't. Or maybe it was the day I started pretending everything was fine, even when nothing was. I had only one son, my only reason to live. When his father died, he was just a little boy, too young to understand what loss means. I remember holding him close, whispering, "It's okay, Beta, Ma's here. Ma will never leave you." And I didn't. Not for a single day. I worked in people's houses. I washed their clothes, cleaned their floors, saved every rupee I could, just to build that one small house. My dream house. Our house. Years passed, and my son grew up. He became my pride, my everything. When he got a job in the city, I used to tell everyone, "My son, he's made me proud." And when he said he found someone to marry, I smiled, 'cause I thought, maybe now I'll have a daughter too. The day she came home, I still remember she wore a yellow dress. She touched my feet, smiled, and said, "Ma, I'll take care of you." Her words, they sounded like sunlight. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. For the first few months, everything was fine. She helped in the kitchen, asked me about old recipes, called me Ma in front of everyone. And I used to tell my neighbors, God blessed me with such a good daughter-in-law. But slowly things began to change. She didn't like how I cooked. She didn't like how I arranged the things in the living room. And sometimes she didn't like that I existed in that house at all. My son, my boy, he started to change too. He began to speak less. He began to listen more, not to me, but to her. I used to sit on the balcony every evening, waiting for him to come back from work. Before, he would come straight to me, hug me, and say, "Ma, what's for dinner?" Now he would go to his room first. I could hear their laughter behind the closed door. And I sat outside with cold tea, pretending not to hear my own heart breaking. One night, I heard them whispering. Her voice was sharp, angry. She said, "Your mother doesn't let us live freely. She needs to leave." And my son said nothing. Not one word. Just silence. Do you know what a mother's silence feels like? It's not empty. It's full of all the things she wanted to say, but didn't. The next morning, I cooked his favorite breakfast, parathas and tea, hoping maybe somehow his heart would remember me again. He didn't touch it. He just said he was running late. And she smiled at me, not kindly, but like someone who had already won a battle I didn't know I was fighting. Days passed like that, slowly, painfully. Then she came to me one afternoon and said, "Ma, let's make the house in your son's name. It's safer for the future." I didn't even think. Why would I? He was my son. He was my blood. I said yes. I signed the papers. And I signed away my peace. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, and the house felt different. The walls, they didn't feel like mine anymore. Something had changed. Something I couldn't see but I could feel. And then one morning, I came back from the temple and found the lock on my door had been changed. My clothes were packed. My photo frames broken. And on the gate, a small note, "Ma will send you money. Don't worry. It's better this way." She wrote it, not him. My son couldn't even face me that I didn't cry that day. Sometimes the pain goes beyond tears. I just walked away, with one small bag, and a heart that felt too heavy to carry. That night I slept under the temple steps. It was cold. The wind touched my face gently, like even the air was sorry for me. And I whispered to myself, maybe this is what love becomes, when it forgets where it came from. It's been years now, but even today, when I close my eyes, I can still see that door, the one that shut behind me. Sometimes it feels like I never left, because the memories, they follow you even when people don't. After they threw me out, I didn't know where to go. I just walked through streets that felt longer than ever. Every face I passed looked like a stranger. Every house had laughter, except mine. I sat outside the temple again that night. It was the only place that didn't ask questions. The priest gave me a blanket. He didn't ask who I was, or why I was crying. He just said, "God never forgets his children, Ma." But I had started to believe that maybe even God had turned his face away. The next morning, I looked at my hands, wrinkled, tired, the same hands that once fed my child, now empty. I started doing small work at the temple, cleaning lamps, folding garlands, sweeping the floor. They gave me food and a little peace. It wasn't home, but it was enough to keep me alive. You know, sometimes when people hurt you, you don't stop loving them. You just stop expecting anything in return. Every evening I would sit under the same old tree and look down the road, hoping maybe, just maybe, one day my son would come. He never did. Months passed, seasons changed, and I learned to live in silence. But silence has a sound, the sound of memories replaying inside your head, again and again. One day, I saw them again. Yes, my son and his wife. They came to the temple, not to see me, but to pray for something. They didn't notice me at first. I was sweeping near the steps. Their clothes were new. They looked happy. And my son, he looked older but not wiser. When I saw him, something inside me broke, but not the way it used to. This time it was quiet, like glass cracking under snow. They walked past me. My daughter-in-law turned her face away, pretending not to recognize me. My son, he hesitated for a moment. Our eyes met, and in that 1 second, 1,000 words lived and died between us. He said softly, "Ma," just once, and I smiled. It wasn't anger. It wasn't forgiveness. It was just love that refused to die, even after being buried alive. He asked, "Are you okay?" I nodded. Because what could I say? That the boy I raised had become a stranger? That his silence had become my home now? He said they'd come back to see me soon. They didn't. 2 years passed after that day. I grew older slower, but somehow lighter, as if pain too becomes a habit. Then one afternoon, a letter came. It was from him. He wrote, "Ma, we need your help. We're in trouble." For a moment, my heart came back to life. I thought maybe he needs me again. Not for money, but for love. But life, it doesn't repeat old kindness twice. When he arrived, he looked tired, desperate. His wife stood behind him, eyes cold as ever. They'd lost their house, the same one I gave them, the same one they threw me out of. I didn't ask how. I just asked, "Have you eaten?" He said no. So I served him food. Simple, the way I always used to. He didn't speak much. Neither did I. When he finished eating, he asked if I could give him some money. Not because he wanted to start fresh, but because he wanted to buy another house. And at that moment, I understood. He hadn't come back for me. He'd come back for what little I had left. I looked at him, and I realized something. Betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it smiles, sits across from you, and calls you Ma. I gave him what I had. Not money, nights are longer now. Maybe it's age. Or maybe it's the weight of memory that keeps the eyes open. When the temple bells stop ringing, and the town falls asleep, I sit beside the small lamp in my corner, and talk to my husband's picture. It's faded now. The edges curled, the glass cracked, but his eyes still look the same. Gentle, steady, silent. I tell him everything. About our son. About the emptiness that has taken his place. I ask him, did we love too much? He never answers. But the flame of the lamp always trembles a little, as if it knows. Sometimes I think back to the days when our son was small, his tiny hands on my cheeks, his voice calling, "Ma, wait for me." Those echoes still live in the walls of my heart. Even after betrayal, a mother's heart refuses to forget the sound of her child's laughter. I used to imagine growing old surrounded by his children, their little feet running through the same courtyard, where he once learned to walk. But life chose silence instead of footsteps. Every morning I light a small dia for them. For my son. For his wife. Not because they deserve it, but because I still want light to find them. Hatred is heavy. Forgiveness is the only thing light enough to carry this far to the temple. People come and go. Some crying for health. Some praying for money. Some begging for love. And I sit there, listening. Their pain doesn't surprise me anymore. It all sounds the same. One young woman often stops by. She brings flowers every Friday. She calls me Amma. She doesn't know my story, but she brings me tea when the mornings are cold. Maybe God sends small kindnesses when He takes away big ones. Last week she asked, Amma, do you miss your home? I smiled and said, home isn't a place, Beta. It's a time. And that time is gone. She looked confused, but one day she'll understand. I have stopped waiting now. I no longer watch the road for footsteps that never return. Instead, I watch the sunrise. It always comes back. Every single day. And that's enough. I still keep one key tied to the end of my sari, the old key to that house. Rusty. Useless. But it reminds me that once I belonged somewhere. Sometimes I hold it in my hand and whisper, this was the sound of my home. And when the metal touches my skin, feels cold, but real. Maybe that's what life teaches us in the end, that love is not a guarantee. It's a gift. And once you give it, it may never return, but it leaves a light inside you that no betrayal can steal. Tonight, as I sit under the same sky, I look at the stars and think, each one must be a mother's wish. That never came true, but still they shine. Quietly, patiently, forever. Maybe that's what I've become too. A small forgotten star that still shines, even when no one is looking. The winters are gentler now, or maybe I have just stopped feeling the cold. Each morning I wake before the temple bell rings. I sweep the courtyard, light the lamp, and watch the smoke rise like a prayer that never asks for anything. Peace feels like that. Not happiness, just the absence of noise. A few months ago my hands began to tremble. First I thought it was nothing, but the tremor stayed. The priest told me to rest more. He said, Amma, you've done enough work. I smiled, because I never learned what enough means for a mother. Days grew shorter. The air tasted of dust and distance. And one evening, I saw a figure standing at the temple gate. My eyes are weak now, but the heart always recognizes what it made. It was my son. He looked thinner, older, as if life had taken back every comfort I once gave him. Behind him stood his wife, the same woman who once locked the door on me. But her eyes were different too. No pride this time, only fear. He bowed his head and said, Ma, we came to take you home. For a moment the world stopped moving. Those words, I had dreamed of them for years. But dreams sound sweeter than reality. I looked at them both. Their clothes were simple now. They had lost everything. The house, the money, the people who used to laugh with them. I said nothing. I just asked the same question I had asked the first time they came for help. Have you eaten? They shook their heads. So I fed them. Slowly, quietly. Like I used to when he was a boy. He couldn't meet my eyes. And she kept wiping her tears with the edge of her dupatta. After dinner they sat beside me on the floor. He said, Ma, I was wrong. I placed my hand on his head. Don't say sorry, Beta. Just don't forget again. They wanted me to return with them. But I told them the truth. My home is here now. The house you gave away was made of bricks. This one, I touched my heart. This one is made of peace. He cried then. Real tears. The kind that come only when regret finally finds its voice. I forgave them before they even asked. Because forgiveness was never for them. It was for me. So I could sleep without bitterness. A few weeks later, they started visiting often. Sometimes they brought fruits. Sometimes just silence. And in that silence, we learned how to love again. Not perfectly, but gently. One night I felt my breath shorten. The lamp flickered. The stars outside blurred. I knew the time was near. I called my son close and whispered, take care of her. And never let your home forget compassion again. He held my hand and said, Ma, I will. When I closed my eyes, I wasn't afraid. I saw my husband waiting by the old gate, smiling. I saw the house the way it used to be, warm, alive, full of laughter. And I walked toward that light, like it was morning again. They say love never dies. Maybe it doesn't. It just changes address. And if anyone ever asks who I was, tell them, I was a mother who lost everything, except the courage to love again. If you're still here, listening till the end, then maybe you've known this kind of love too. The kind that gives even after being broken. Every story on MyHeart Talks belongs to someone who dared to feel deeply. Maybe it's your story. Maybe it's someone you miss. Here, we don't judge the past. We remember it. We speak it softly, so that no pain ever feels alone again. If this story touched you, pause for a moment, breathe, and then click subscribe. Not for numbers, but so that every time a new heart speaks, you'll be there to listen. Because some truths are too quiet to be heard by the world. They need hearts like yours. This is MyHeart Talks, where every heartbeat becomes a story, and every story becomes a light.